Thank you. It is Sunday, the 28th of September, 2025. And what a week it has been. Now, I always begin, I forgot being enough for a while now. I want to thank my little loyal band of Patreon friends. And if you'd like to join their number, magically, it will appear above my head. The link will appear above my head. And £5 a month. If you're finding any value in this nonsense, then to keep it going, it'd be very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Now, I have to start again with Trump. I finished with Trump last week, but I have to begin with Trump again this week. The man is on a roll. Now, someone wrote in and they noticed what they believe that I may have powers of premonition. I may have premonition powers. Because if you look at the dolls behind me, I have Trump there. There's Donald, right? And Donald is shagging Mickey Mouse. No, this has been behind me for quite a few months. And it's proved that this is exactly what's happened over the last week. Yes, that's exactly what's happened over the Jimmy Kimmel cancellation. ABC, right, the channel which cancelled the Kimmel show, well, their parent company is none other than Disney. And having caved to Trump's threats and taken Kimmel off the air, there was a commercial backlash from the American people who rose up was one, demanding the First Amendment rights. They always talk about the Second Amendment rights. That's the right to bear arms, right? The First Amendment is free speech and all that there. But to be honest with you, Nick, if you have the Second Amendment, then you can pretty much say whatever you want. That's it. Beside the point. Anyway, the American public began cancelling by the tens of thousands their Disney subscriptions. And cancel planned trips to the magical kingdom. And well, Donald Duck and Minnie Mouse were none too pleased. Oh, they called a board meeting of all the Disney characters. And that resulted in the immediate reinstatement of the Kimmel show. He was back on the air only a week after they initially said they'd cancelled his show indefinitely. So, unbowed, this is how Kimmel pummeled the Donald when he got back in front of the cameras.
You almost have to feel sorry for him. He did his best to cancel me. Instead, he forced millions of people to watch the show. That backfired bigly. He might have to release the Epstein files to distract us from this now.
As you'd expect, the petulant schoolyard bully, which is Donald Trump, he criticized the decision by ABC, saying he may now go after them in the courts. Now, Trump's boot boy in the cancellation of the Kimmel show had been FFC chief Brendan Carr. Now, if you want some background, check out last week's vlogs where I done the whole thing about what happened. As I predicted at the time, rather than cowering comics into silence, the cancellation of the Kimmel show had them queuing up to put the proverbial boot into Donald. And this will only continue to grow as the man-child continues to act like the spoilt brat he's always been. Now, having just made a fool of himself over Kimmel, the Donald decided to roll out his Dalek impersonator, Secretary of Health Robert Kennedy, for a supposedly world-shaking new medical discovery. I normally would never mock anybody how to speak, but that bastard deserves it. I'm sorry, I make no apologies. Yes, according to Kennedy and Trump, they'd only gone and identified the cause of autism in children. Roll of drums, wait for it. Here we go. Take it away, Donald.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is
fills you with confidence, doesn't it? Not being able to pronounce the name of the medication he says is responsible for causing the autism. Now, Donald has a very checkered history regarding medical matters, right? Like his pronouncements on COVID and a possible cure for COVID. Do you remember this?
And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
To fully appreciate just how insane this suggestion was, watch how Dr. Deborah Birx, one of the world's foremost experts on infectious diseases, who just happened to be sitting at the side of the stage when the Donald suggested this, just watch how she reacted.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful. Steve, please.
There were reports that some people actually took Donald's advice and died. And the American Disinfectant Producers Association were forced to run adverts clarifying that their products were highly dangerous if ingested into the human body. Only in America would you have to run ads for that. We sort of know that shit, do you understand? Only in America do you need these things explained, you understand?
Do not shoot yourself in the head. It will be very painful.
We don't... All right, leave it there. Now, medical geniuses Trump and Kennedy have decided, yes indeed, that it's the fault of mothers that their children have autism. Yes, I mean, imagine women being so selfish as to want pain relief during labour. So for Donald and Kennedy, the answer is clear. Women need to go back to the good old days regarding childbirth. Go out to the back garden, dig themselves a hole, squat over it, and if they need a bit of pain relief, just bite down an old twig or a stick. If only Trump's mother had done that and filled the hole up once she stood up. Think how better our world would be. Told me world leaders, right? Leaders of the world gathered in New York during the week to address the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Donald, however, who addressed the assembled world leaders, well, he had more pressing issues, such as the fact someone turned off an escalator as soon as he stood on it, and his shock horror of all, his auto cue didn't work.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much.
Having addressed those world-chasing issues, Trump went on to harangue and lambast just about every nation in attendance. Even jolly old England got a touch, even after Keir Starmer had pimped out the royal family for Trump only a few days earlier. Trump naturally humbly proclaimed himself a genius. He'd seemingly stopped numerous wars. This is all playing into his ambition to get the Nobel Prize for Peace, which he will never get. But this is all this shite that he's going over. And then he said that all the other leaders in the UN were failures. He then added salt to the wound. Right? You couldn't believe this. By forcing many of those world leaders, such as Turkey's Erdogan and France's President Macron, to stand on the pavement in New York until his motorcade had passed. Now, President Macron was having none of it and demanded to be let through.
If you don't see it, let me cross. I negotiate with you.
So, what do you do when you're the French president and the NYPD won't let you cross the road? It's a bit like a chicken crossing the road joke is, but it's not a joke. Well, you get on the phone and give off to the man holding you up, Trump.
Guess what? I'm waiting in the street because everything is frozen for you.
To his eternal credit, Macron refused to be delayed by the tangoed idiot and walked to his embassy in Washington. During that saunter through Washington, he even managed to take a few selfies with adoring fans.
A French delegation on a New York City stroll with their president, stopping to pose for pictures, as you do.
Can you imagine Trump getting out of his car and going for a walk these days? The man is so hated, he couldn't even show his face during his visit to the UK. They had to stick him behind the high walls of Windsor Castle for the whole time he was there. But Trump wasn't, believe it or not, this is hard to believe, Trump was not the biggest shite at the gathering in the UN. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. That title remains with the Israeli despot and war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. When that odious weasel took to the stage, delegates in the assembly exited quicker than passengers leaving the Titanic ballroom the night it hit the iceberg.
John, we're just seeing, we're just seeing Benjamin Netanyahu approach the podium. Let's have a listen in.
Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall, and please be seated.
I refuse to dignify his comments by stating them here. I'm not going to do that. The lies this mad mass murderer spouted in his attempts to justify his crimes. The genocide being perpetrated by both the Zionist fanatics within his government and the IDF are clear to the rest of the world. Israel is now a pariah state with only one ally, the Trump administration, which continues to fund, arm, and facilitate the slaughter in Gaza. Paradoxically, just as Trump's attempt to stymie free speech in the USA backfired, so Netanyahu's ambition to deny Palestinians a homeland has likewise blown up in his face. His barbarity has coalesced the world as never before into recognizing the right for a Palestinian state. His bombs, bullets, and starvation of that beleaguered population will have one and only one outcome. Palestine will rise and one day take its place in the very same UN in which Netanyahu's lies echoed in an empty room. It was heartening to hear during the week from a real US president in the shape of Barack Obama. This is what he said during a talk about Trump and Kennedy's autism nonsense.
So we had the spectacle of my successor in the Oval Office making broad claims around certain drugs and autism that have been continuously disproved. And the degree to which that undermines public health, the degree to which that can do harm to women who are pregnant, the degree to which that creates anxiety for parents who do have children who are autistic, which, by the way, itself is subject to a spectrum, and a lot of what is being trumpeted as these massive increases actually have to do with a broadening of the criteria across that spectrum so that people can actually get services and help, not to, it's all of that is violence against the truth.
Obama followed up with as concise an explanation for the many problems in the world today as I have heard in many, many years.
It's fair to say that 80% of the world's problems involve old men hanging on and who are afraid of death. and insignificance, and they won't let go. And they build pyramids and they put their names on everything, and they're very anxious about it.
History is not short of those figures, sadly. Neither is the present.
Yeah. Old man afraid of death. That pretty much sums it up. I first highlighted the BBC's overt bias towards Israel in its reporting of the Gazan genocide in a bit I did on the 2nd of September this year, entitled BBC Continues to Act as IDF Mouthpiece, right? Well, they're still at it. Demonstrated this week during an interview with the head of the crisis desk at Reporters Without Borders. Now just watch this closely.
International journalists have been prevented from entering Gaza without being accompanied by Israeli military. How important is it for journalists to actually be on the ground?
I want to remind first that Palestinian journalists are doing their jobs on the ground from inside the Gaza Strip, and they're documenting what UN experts are calling a genocide committed by the Israeli army in the Gaza Strip. So the job is already done. So it's very important, of course, to pressure the Israeli government to let international reporters inside the Gaza Strip. But it's a priority to remind that Palestinian journalists inside the Gaza Strip are doing their jobs independently.
I think it's important to stress, and thank you absolutely for reminding about the Palestinian reporters who are on the ground, who are not just reporting from a difficult situation. They are obviously living through the
being killed by the Israeli army.
Absolutely, and it's really the Israeli Defence Force would deny that they are specifically targeting journalists, but we do know,
we
Martin,
are a press freedom organization, and we have credible reason to say that yes, they are targeting journalists, not only because they have killed over 200 of them, but also because we gathered evidences that they have directly targeted over 50 amongst this 200, and also they're using a technique that is like a double attack. So the second attack is specifically intended to target journalists and medical workers. So this is a technique that we've seen used by the Israeli army in the Gaza Strip. So this is important to say also.
It is important, and I'm just going to say that the Israeli military denies targeting journalists specifically, but of course we know even the Committee to Protect Journalists.
The Israeli military is saying a lot of things that we cannot take for granted.
No.
Did you notice that? Twice, not once, twice, that BBC reporter mouthed the bullshit lies of the IDF regarding their deliberate targeting and murder of journalists in Gaza. Like the IDF don't even need to appear on the BBC anymore to peddle their lies or disinformation, as that organisation is willing to do it for them. It's left to other broadcasters to hold the IDF to account, and when they do put an apologist up for interview, they're invariably torn to shreds and their lies exposed. The peddling of Israeli disinformation by the BBC has forever tarnished their image in the eyes of the world. And their bullshit argument that they have to be proportionate and give both sides of the argument is ludicrous. Like, imagine if on, June the 14th, 1940, right, the day that the Nazis walked into Paris. Imagine if you turned your radio on that morning and heard a report talking about it. And the report ended with, while France say this is an invasion, Herr Hitler has said his intention is not to conquer, but to bring France into the Greater Germany. Can you imagine? Churchill would have kept them alive. And there's no argument about this anymore. The stats are clear. The stats are in. There is definite bias in BBC reporting on the Gazan war in favour of Israel. An analysis was carried out of more than 35,000 pieces of BBC content by the Center for Media Monitoring, and it threw up clear biases. For example, Israeli deaths were given 33 times more coverage by the BBC than Palestinian deaths. They also found that the BBC used emotive terms such as brutal, atrocities, slaughter, barbaric, and deadly 4 times more often for Israeli victims than Palestinian. Again, the words butchered, butcher, and butchering were used exclusively for Israeli victims by BBC correspondents. BBC presenters were found to have shut down genocide claims in over 100 documented instances while making zero mention of Israeli leaders' genocidal statements. Israeli perspectives were prioritised by BBC presenters, who shared the Israeli perspective 11 times more frequently than the Palestinian perspective. That's 2,340 odd times for Israeli compared to 217 times for Palestinian. Now, you want to read the whole report? You can find it by going to novaramedia.com. novaramedia.com. It's worth a read, and there's a lot of good stuff all in there. Back home, we have yet another report into how to get rid of our paramilitaries, how to get them to sod off and disband. Yes, boys and girls, 27 years. We're talking about 27 years after the signing of the Good Friday Agreement. We're still begging small groups of malcontents to go away. Remember, part of the Good Friday Agreement included a promise from those very organisations that they would disband and disappear. And we all know here that countless millions of pounds in public money was siphoned into their coffers to encourage them to go home and stay at home and just take the brew, which they've always been doing. Still, they remain extorting, bullying, and up to their necks in all manner of criminality. So our great leader, Keir Starmer, has invited a Dutch conflict resolution expert called Fleur Ravensbergen, over to see if she can convince the men with the balaclavas to take them off. How much this is going to cost, well, we haven't been told. But you can be damn sure we, the taxpayers, are going to foot the bill. Call me old-fashioned, but I have a 2-word solution to the problem, which could possibly cut through the bullshit. Are you ready for this? Just tell them all to fuck off. Yes, that's a capital F in fuck and a capital O in off. And if they won't, then how about our chief constable of the PSNI, John Boucher? Why would he not redirect his resources and stop arresting people who clearly are not terrorists but happen to wear Palestine Action t-shirts and start arresting those who are only too proud and willing to claim themselves to be terrorists? Is that too obvious a possibility? Could we not possibly do that? Seriously, people? It's 2025. I'm too old for this shit. Now for a wee bit something different. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Here we go. Jake recommends. Now, I explained these all a while back. I don't accept any sponsorship. This means when I do recommend something, you can be sure it's down to me liking it rather than being paid to like it. I think the term for them people is influencers, when in truth they should be called corporate whores. That's basically what they are. You know what I mean? They say, no, flash is that I bullshit. Bullshit. It's all over the internet. It's all bullshit, right? So if I say I like something, believe you me, I like it. So this week, I'd like to call your attention to a new book by a friend of mine. Now, it's important to let you know and flag up any personal connections, as I want to be as transparent as possible. I stress, I am not reviewing this book because this man happens to be a personal friend. Indeed, if I thought his book was shite, I simply would not mention it. But this publication is very interesting. It's a work by a guy called Dr. Tim Cunningham, who is presently working as a visiting assistant professor at the prestigious Pratt Institute in New York. Now, the book is entitled Human Rights and the Architecture of Conflict. And long title, but what basically it exposes how Belfast's urban development was impacted due to security concerns during the Troubles. Yes, believe it or not, most of us don't know this, but securocrats had a direct input into how Belfast's infrastructure was built. And this is partly the cause of our horrendous traffic gridlock today. Now, you don't believe this. I actually have a wee bit of anecdotal evidence regarding the time I lived on the New Lodge Road. Now, the area was undergoing redevelopment in the 1980s. And some of the side streets off the New Lodge, they were getting closed off with bollards, right? There were bollards closing off those roads. Now, the argument proffered at the time was that this was a traffic calming measure. But locals soon noticed that the reason for the bollards and the distance between the bollards was very precise, because the distance between the bollards allowed for security force vehicles, be they police jeeps or army jeeps, to go through. The bollards were placed just wide enough to allow jeeps to go through, but too narrow to allow ordinary cars to get through. Obviously by design rather than accident. But back to Dr. Tim and his book, in which he details how much of Belfast's urban development was designed with just such security issues at the forefront. Now, I'm hoping to have a chat with Tim in the near future if I can ever work out how to get this recording stuff to work. Okay, now, my second recommendation of the week is for a TikTok account. I've just started getting on the TikTok. It's very good, isn't it? It's very interesting stuff. It's a new kiddie thing, but it's good. I like it. And this account, right, is a TikTok account of a drone operator, right? What makes this guy different is he's a very, very professional and good photographer. And he's brought that photographer's eye to the world of drones. So his images are always different and engaging. He has dozens upon dozens of amazing videos of local historical sites and places of local interest filmed from on high. Now, another reason I love this guy is down to his online name, which is Drone Wanker. Isn't that brilliant? How couldn't you like somebody like that? You couldn't not like somebody who calls himself Drone Wanker. I like that sort of stuff too. So if you want to, how we look up Drone Wanker on TikTok and get a unique view of our beautiful wee place from on high.
You'll do nothing. You hear me? You'll do nothing.